Perhaps making a video on this is too premature, considering as of writing this script at nearly 5 AM as the new year has just approached the UK. I feel that after browsing Twitter and reading news updates, that at least an initial video on this story can serve as some good content for you and the channel. So, as you can guess by the title of this video, there's yet again been another attack in my fair city of Manchester, in its Victoria train station. This, perhaps not too coincidentally, is literally a stone's throw away from the Manchester Arena. In fact, it is connected to the Manchester Arena, the site of the last terrorist attack. And once again, the evidence points towards the same old people doing the same old things to the same old victims. Muslim extremists attacking innocent people going about their business in the name of their ideology and in the name of their oppressed civilization in the face of Western imperialism. It's becoming a repetitive joke. In fact, even the initial reactions are becoming jokes too. At first, the idea that it could have been yet another terrorist attack was just not possible. People have asserted that despite the context of the situation, even before more evidence flooded in, that it was mental health. Despite the fact it was in a train station, a transport police officer and 2 members of the public were stabbed, though fortunately as of writing, all have survived the attack, and was right near the site of the last attack in Manchester. It just doesn't add up. Lo and behold, the evidence did come in, and once it did, well, who can say anyone can be surprised at the result? So first, let us speak about what actually happened. According to the reports, a man and woman in their 50s were attacked at 8:50 GMT, Greater Manchester Police said. A British Transport police officer was stabbed in the shoulder. A man has been held on suspicion of attempted murder. Officers said counter-terrorism police were leading the inquiry, but they were keeping an open mind on the motive. Now, I know it is the standard procedure of all investigations to start from this open-minded state, and I have no issue with it, but as we shall see, the motive is pretty much stated as the arrest took place. I believe that such statements from British police is nothing but an attempt to mitigate public reaction. We do not know what it is, despite reports, so there's some elements of society that will wish to be in denial of the reality on the ground. Nonetheless, it's a nitpick. The station is currently shut and officers remain at the scene. Greater Manchester Police, which declared the attack a critical incident, said there was no intelligence to suggest that there is any wider threat at this time. Officers said the attack victims' injuries were serious but not life-threatening. Now enter the main witness to this story, Sam Clack, and listen to what he has to say in this particular article before we move on to another. BBC 5 Live producer Sam Clack, who had been at the station at the time, said he saw a man stabbed on the tram platform at the station, which is next to Manchester Arena, feet from me. He added he was close to jumping on the tracks as the attacker had a long kitchen knife. Mr. Clack said he first heard this most blood-curdling scream and looked down the platform. It looked like they were having a fight, but the woman was screaming in this blood-curdling way. I saw police in high-vis come towards him. He came towards me. I looked down and saw he had a kitchen knife with a black handle with a good 12-inch blade. It was just fear. Pure fear. He said police used pepper spray and a taser on the detained man who he said had been resisting arrest. He said he saw 6 or 7 officers on top of the man who he described as very skittish. He was very aggressive and intent on causing more harm than he actually did. He said it was very, very scary. This is corroborated by footage Clack filmed, though it does not show the aggression of the subdued assailant.
Make your way up now! Move away now! Move!
Now here we have a pretty good picture of what happened. A man launching into a frenzied attack on innocent bystanders, fighting and slashing with a 12-inch kitchen knife, and was clearly intending to cause much more harm. The BBC clearly avoiding some elements of their own employee's story, because in this article in Reuters, we get more information that adds a whole new context to this situation. A BBC producer who was a witness at the station described the attackers wielding a large kitchen knife, and he linked his actions to bombings in other countries. I heard the man say, as long as you keep bombing these countries, this is going to keep happening, the producer Sam Clack told BBC 5 Live Radio. It was very, very scary. Indeed, in his own 5 Live Radio interview, he did mention some of the things mentioned in this interview.
And they were moving towards me, and I just heard Allah. I didn't hear the rest of the sentence, but I heard that, and I thought, you know what, I've reported on enough of these type of incidents, frankly, while at 5 Live, to know kind of that this is something that's not quite correct.
And so the person, there had obviously then been a knife used, and the knifeman used the word Allah. You don't know the rest of the sentence.
Yeah, well, he had, but this is in retrospect, because at the time I didn't see a knife, right? So this was all happening, and then the police started moving in. So you had a kind of 6, 7, 8 police officers in their high-vis vests moving towards the guy very quickly, you know, and this was in 20, 30 seconds of this happening, bear in mind, very quickly. The man who was clearly the attacker was very skittish, shouting, slashing out, and started to move towards me. And then as he was within probably 6 to 8 feet of me, and at this point I'm getting quite scared, to be perfectly honest. And I looked down at his hand, and he was holding a kitchen knife. Now, he had a black handled kitchen knife, blade, you know, a 10-inch long blade. And I'm thinking, okay, and the police are coming towards him. He's backing off towards me. I'm the only person on the platform at this point. And he's looking left, he's looking right, he's backing off, he's very jittery. And I was just sort of moving towards the tram tracks. I was looking down, thinking, okay, that's maybe an 8-foot drop. So I'm you know, what I'm going to have to do here is jump onto the tracks and run. That's the point I was at. At which point, one of the police officers shouted, "Taser!" Fired the taser. It missed him. It just fired off to his left-hand side. Again, at this point, I'm thinking, right, he's missed him now. He's getting a bit closer to me. I need to get out of here. But then there was pepper spray. There was another taser. They brought him down. They sat on top of him. And, he was shouting, resisting. And at this point, I'm very scared, but I'm also a journalist. I started to film what was going on as well, which kind of felt a bit weird, if I'm honest. But I started I thought I'd film what's going on because it could be evident or whatever. As I moved towards them, they said, "Stop filming." So I stopped filming, and then I started to move past where they were holding him on the ground, and there was lots of swearing and shouting and all this kind of stuff going on. But as I started to move past him, I heard him say very clearly, "If you keep bombing these countries, this sort of stuff," and I say stuff, it was another word he used, but this sort of stuff is going to keep happening. At which point I started to film again, and I couldn't even tell you what I captured, but I just looked down and he had pepper spray in his eyes, streaming down his face, saying this kind of stuff. The police were, kind of leaning on him and swearing at him as well.
We understand a police officer or a British Transport Police officer has been injured.
Apparently so. I've heard that, yes, and that the fact is they were there so quickly. For me, as just a person.
So why the BBC chose to omit these key facts in this late night article is rather suspect to me, and perhaps they have political reasons. Not to mention the fact that the man who carried out this attack was an Islamist, as evidenced in this clip here, and where he is very open about his allegiances and his religion. Long live the Caliphate and Allahu Akbar, as well as the rhetoric of bombing other countries, the irony of which should not be lost, as it is not just the West that has been bombing other countries. Islamic terror organisations funded by countries like Iran, Saudi Arabia, etc. have, since the mid to late 20th century, and in our own century, been attacking the West with violence, as well as with their own violent rhetoric, whether it be wars with Israel, plane hijackings in the 70s such as Munich, or in the Iranian embassy in London, to the bombings of planes like Lockerbie to 9/11, 7/7, and the recent attacks all across Europe with trucks and cars of peace, as well as stabbings and bombings. This is not to mention the incredible violence done to people of their own faiths as well, some of it exacerbated by terrible Western policy over the years, but this violence was already brewing and happening in the Islamic world. In fact, just before I was due to record this script, the police have just now said that the stabbing of 3 people, including a police officer at Manchester Victoria Station on New Year's Eve, is being treated as a terror-related incident, police have confirmed. A 25-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. 2 knives were recovered at the scene and the property is being searched in the Cheetham Hill area. The BBC understands security services are assisting police. In a briefing on Tuesday morning, Greater Manchester Police Chief Constable Ian Hopkins added, "Last night we experienced a horrific attack on people out to simply enjoy the New Year's Eve celebrations in Manchester. My thoughts are with the couple who are still being treated in hospital for their serious injuries, and with the brave British Transport Police officer who was also stabbed during the attack." Assistant Chief Constable Russ Jackson of Greater Manchester Police GMP told reporters at a briefing at Force HQ the suspect lived in the Cheetham Hill area of the city. He said officers were carrying out a search at his address. So there we have it, confirmation that even the police are treating this as a terror attack. The article goes on to state, there is wide reporting in the press about what the attacker allegedly said during the incident, and because of this we want to be clear. We are treating this as a terrorism investigation, he said, adding that the officers are nevertheless also retaining an open mind in relation to the motivation for this attack. He said there was no information to suggest that this time others are involved. He said police are still trying to establish whether the suspect is a British national, and that given how frenzied the attack was, they're also obviously considering his mental health. Police recovered 2 knives at the scene, but do not yet know if both were used in the attack, he added. Manchester Metrolink said services to the station operating to the normal pattern, but advised of minor delays. Officers said that counter-terrorism police were leading the inquiry. Although they're still adopting this open-mind approach, at the very least, the physical footage we have seen has influenced their investigation. Police raided a newly built semi-detached house on Schoolside Close in Cheetham Hill, a mile north of Manchester city centre, on Tuesday morning. Nusha Babakashel, 40, said a Somali family live at the address, a mother and a father of 5 in their 40s who came to live in the street around 12 years ago from the Netherlands. She said 2 of the 4 sons are at university, 1 works at Manchester Airport, and the youngest is back in Somalia. They also have a daughter. Both parents attend the local Kizar Mosque. I mean, need I say any more about what this potentially could all be about? People can continue to say mental health, but the signs are there. It is all there, and I don't need to say anything else other than one more thing, that we should probably not suspect the whole family, especially as some of them are probably very young kids, and the parents obviously came to this place 12 years ago, and from what we can gather, they have not really caused any issues in the local community. These people are innocent until proven guilty, and for all we know, they could simply be put in the firing line by their son's terrible actions through no fault of their own. But we don't know. But it is a sad indictment, not of Islam per se, but really of us in the West. How can it be that Manchester, whose last major terrorist attack was 22 years ago in 1996, when the IRA bombed the Arndale shopping centre, have such a long time when nothing happened until 2017 and 2018, where within the space of barely a year, we have 2 terrorist attacks? Yes, this attack on Monday night was a terrorist attack. Clark himself, the people witnessing the attack, the 3 victims all express a fear, and the terrorist was killing to incite fear and terror on our streets in the name of the caliphate. The police reports. He told us all in public without any care, by the way, this guy. How can it be that terror attacks have only increased rather than decreased? Don't worry, I already have my answer to this. And yes, it might be cliched at this point. Yes, it has been said and done to death, but it is this. It is the result of nearly 20 years worth of poor policy abroad and at home. We have failed to manage our society wherein communities like the Muslim community have not been integrated fully into our country and are now causing societal problems. And they are not just terrorism. We have failed to embolden reformers within Islam and have allowed radical Islam to grow whilst we push away ex-Muslims and reformers alike. We pay lip service and pursue a policy of appeasement with Muslim communities and leaders because now the oppressed, marginalised minority group. Criticism has been stifled because of political correctness and also supported by said radical organisations who need this in order to grow unopposed. Not only that, it is pretty clear that we have also, despite many successes, failed to curb the threat and the amount of attacks happening. But the problem is, we continue to just accept this fate. We continue to just allow this to happen. And it's becoming depressing. How many times, dear viewer, have you seen a story like this when it's just been reported on and we barely know anything and you guess Muslim extremists gone on a terrorist rampage and it turns out to be true? Too many times. And it has, as I said, become a repetitive joke. I will say it until I go blue in the face, but we must open a dialogue and we must have a conversation about Islam in this country. I do not hate Muslim people. I've met too many of them to come to that conclusion. I do, however, hate the ideology, as much as I hate any other authoritarian ideology or religion. And I want to stress that it is the ideology, not the person, that we should be attacking, as many of these people are actually ignorant of their own religion and are decent people. Watch any ex-Muslim YouTube channel and you'll see this fact crop up time and time again. We need to have this conversation so that we can be honest with each other, try to come to a consensus to get rid of the progressive and radical Islamist agendas that are trying to stop criticism and discussion, to bring this discussion away from the far right and back into the mainstream discourse where a proper debate can be had. Perhaps if these conversations become fruitful, we can plant seeds of change, where the police are not bogged down by politically correct policy, forcing them to not do their job properly without fear of being called racist, to help Muslims who want to fight this radicalisation in their communities, to give them the tools they need to stamp it out and reform not just a religion but their areas, so they become more integrated and more British, less isolated. But until then, we need to wake up, and sadly I just don't see that happening after this, but perhaps it will, and I'm just being pessimistic. Until next time, it's been your boy, and I'll see you later.